Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you in today's webinar, in Dilemma whether we hold, fold, or add more gold, brought to you by Quantum Mutual Fund. I am Mohit Bhatnagar. I am your host for the evening. And as you all know, that gold has always held a unique place in investors' portfolio as a symbol of security, hedge against uncertainty. However, in today's dynamic environment, marked by shifting interest rates, volatile markets, and evolving global situations, investors are often faced with crucial questions like, should I be adding more gold in my portfolio or should I reduce the exposure? What do I really do? To help us navigate this ever relevant question, I have Mr. Chirag Mehta, CIO at Quantum Mutual Fund. Chirag has got over 2 decades of experience in fund management, and he has been instrumental in shaping Quantum's gold investment strategy and has deep insights into how macroeconomic trends work. In today's session, Chirag will help us decode what is the current outlook on gold, both globally and in India. What is the impact of inflation and interest rates on gold prices? And most importantly, how investors should think about allocating gold in their portfolios. So, dear partners, welcome once again. And with this, I hand it over to Chirag for today's presentation. Over to you, Chirag.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm sure with festive season around and Dhanteras approaching in a week's time, everyone would have the same question whether, what to do with gold. Do you, in this festive season, just have a token purchase or you go and build your allocation to gold? So the question is very relevant that hold, fold, or add more gold this festive season. And how do you approach it or look at it from a portfolio perspective is something that we will delve into detail when it comes to that. So I'll run a few slides very quickly and then be open to answer any questions that you may have on gold or gold related investments. So without further ado, I will just go ahead and start the presentation. So the question is, what is gold hinting at? Is it a bubble in the making, or is it pointing that there is a big reset somewhere around the corner? Is it pointing to more troubles in the external world? Because generally, a gold prices rise when there is a lot of uncertainty, when there is some paradigm shift happening in the global markets, which leads to gold prices rising. Is it something similar happening this time around? So we are absolutely navigating a world of uncertainty. We have volatility in stock markets. We have geopolitical tensions which are running rife. We have uncertain economic conditions. INR has been depreciating even when we have seen that US dollar is falling. Usually other currencies appreciate against dollar, which is falling at that time. But this time, dollar itself is falling and INR is depreciating even against that. And there are inflationary pressures with tariff wars, Trump policies. Will it lead to a slowdown? And will it compel the central banks to print more money, which will further drive inflation? So it's a vicious cycle that can get started if all this inflation that we see leads to actions by central bank and leading to further inflation. So this is gold journey overall. If you look at 1971 was a critical moment for gold because at that point in time, gold currencies lost backing to gold. President Nixon, with a stroke of a pen, removed the peg that they had with gold. So earlier, before 1971, you could print only as much currencies that you had backing in form of gold, post which they could print any number without any gold backing. So that era was separate because it was all backed by gold. The currencies that they created were all backed by gold. Post which this is what the price action has been in gold markets. So we saw a great run in gold from 1971 to 1980. I would say it was a stellar run that gold saw from around $34, $35 to about $850 at that point in time. So it was a staggering move that we saw that time. It was also, there were phases of correction from 1975 to 77. It was a corrective phase for gold market. Uh, After peaking in 1980, it consolidated for about 24 years. And then it started moving up from 1999 to 2000. It had again a great run from about 200 odd dollars to about $1,800. Then it saw a 14-year consolidation post that. Sorry, a 4 to 5 year consolidation from 2011 to 2016, but the breakout only came in 2020, which was a significant consolidation period there. And post which we have seen a stellar rally again in 24-25, which has led gold prices to touching about $4,000. So how does this bull market compare to the previous ones that we have seen, be it the 1970s or be it the 2000s? How does it pair? So if you look at some look at 1971 to 80 as a one combined market, but I think 1971 to 74 was a more catch up because central banks had printed more money और उस वजह से गोल्ड ऊपर जा रहा था. So it was more a catch up trade और उसके बाद again it continued its rally. So ईच टाइम जब भी हमने गोल्ड मार्केट में एक बुल मार्केट देखा है, so generally it has moved by about 4.6x to 5.9 times. uh, and number of, if you look at the time period also, it's been many years that it took to fully run through the bull market that it saw. So ये जो bull market है has gone up by only 3x so far. Each previous bull market had gone up by at least 4.6 times, which was the minimum that we have seen. And the one that we saw in 2000 to 2012 was about 6 times, almost 5.9 to be precise. But within those bull markets also, there were periods of consolidation, periods of correction. Like the correction that we saw in 2000 to 2012, the maximum correction we saw was 26%. 78 to 80 that we saw was a correction of 24%. 71 to 74, there was a pullback of 21%. So usually the bull markets also do not go up in a straight line. There will be phases of consolidation. Correction does not mean that the bull market is over. द प्रीवियस बुल मार्केट एंड दिस बुल मार्केट दोनों में बहुत बड़ा अंतर है. अगर पहली वाली बुल मार्केट देखें, was all driven by retail flows. The flows into ETF were very significant at that time, which led to gold prices moving up. So if you look at the shaded area in blue is gold ETF holding. So if you look at gold ETF holdings were moving up along with the gold price, or rather I would say gold prices were moving with the increase in gold ETF holdings, which means more gold ETF were bought, which led to more gold buying because gold is the underlying for gold ETF. और उस वजह से गोल्ड प्राइसेस ऊपर जा रहे थे. ये वाली बुल मार्केट देखिए, इफ यू लुक एट द राइट हैंड साइड ऑफ द चार्ट, 20 to 24 the market has gone up, but if you look at gold ETF holding has still not crossed the 2020 level. So अभी तक retail participation missing है, जो 2000 वाली बुल मार्केट में काफी ज्यादा था. So 2000 to 2009-10 was completely characterized by gold ETF holdings going up, retail buying those gold ETFs, and gold prices moving up. But this time around, the retail participation has been hardly anything. So what is moving the gold market? So you will generally see कि लोग बोलेंगे कि डिमांड सप्लाई, इनफ्लोज आउटफ्लोज गोल्ड ईटीएफ में, वेडिंग सीजन, फेस्टिव बाइंग, चाइना गोल्ड इंपोर्ट, माइन सप्लाई डिमांड, माइनिंग कॉस्ट बढ़ रहे हैं, एक्सचेंज ट्रेडिंग में इन्वेंट्री लेवल्स ऊपर है नीचे है। अकॉर्डिंग टू मी, आई हैव बीन लुकिंग एट गोल्ड मार्केट फॉर मोर देन 20 years नाउ। ये सब मेरे हिसाब से इज नॉइज। These can cause short-term blips in prices, but not a structural move in gold prices. This is all noise. ये सब seasonality लाते हैं या short term moves लाते हैं, मगर उसके ज्यादा नहीं होता है। What really moves gold market? First, you have to define what is gold. So, gold is a monetary asset. Gold is akin to money. Gold was being used as money for more than 5,000 years. Today, also, it depicts the same characteristics. And therefore, whatever moves the value of money moves value of gold. So, what truly shapes gold market is one very important thing is real interest rates. Real interest rates is nothing but interest rates minus inflation. So, on a real basis, अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं, रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं, तो गोल्ड को परेशानी होगी ऊपर जाने के लिए। और अगर रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट नीचे आ रहे हैं, तो आई थिंक गोल्ड विल डू वेल। द यील्ड कर्व, क्रेडिट स्प्रेड्स, another important thing is relative strength of the banking sector. Because if gold were money, money is generally being created by central banks, which gets handed out to banks and then it goes into the economy. और banking sector की strength अच्छी नहीं होगी, तो gold will certainly do well because its competitor money, which is being created, is not doing well. Another important thing is US dollar exchange rate. US dollar exchange rate is also a big determinant because today's reserve currency, global reserve currency is dollar. And therefore, if there is any challenge to the reserve currency today, is only gold because other currencies are not that strong enough or not that having that much depth to absorb so much of global flows. The gold is one thing which is challenging dollar's dominance, and therefore dollar में अगर weakness है तो gold benefits out of that. And trends in commodity prices, the commodity prices increase and decrease reflect monetary inflation. Monetary inflation commodity price inflation में convert होता है, और उस वजह से overall again it impacts real interest rates, again it impacts how people behave in the economy, and therefore drives gold value. So this is, overall how US economy has been functioning all these years, right? अगर यूएस की मैक्रो मैथ देखें, तो यूएस में एक तो डेफिसिट है, वो लोग कंजम्पशन ज़्यादा करते हैं, कंजम्पशन करने के लिए उनके पास पैसे नहीं हैं तो दे रिलाई ऑन बोरोड मनी। बोरोड मनी इज नथिंग बट अ डेफिसिट। So their US deficit as a percentage of GDP has always been high, and over last few years it's again been very very high as compared to what we have seen in history or what it should be. So US has been even now running a deficit of 6.1%, which has increased significantly in 2020 to about 13% of GDP. So उनके डेफिसिट्स बढ़ रहे हैं, नीचे नहीं आ रहे हैं, और राइजिंग डेफिसिट लीड्स टू डेट क्रिएशन। अगर आपके पास डेफिसिट है, आप वो डेफिसिट में के लिए पैसे नहीं हैं, तो आप डेट इशू करेंगे, इसलिए आपके पास पैसे आएंगे टू फंड दैट डेफिसिट। बिकॉज योर डेफिसिट नथिंग बट स्पेंडिंग ओवर रेवेन्यू। योर स्पेंडिंग इज हाई एंड रेवेन्यू इज लो, विच लीड्स टू डेफिसिट। एंड हेंस अगर आपके पास डेफिसिट क्रिएट हो रही है, तो आपके वो डेफिसिट फंड करने के लिए पैसे चाहिए। वो पैसे कहाँ से आते हैं? बाई इशूइंग मोर डेट। So if you look at US debt level, which was about 58% in early 2000s, has now gone up to more than 120% of GDP, which is a very alarmingly high level of debt. इतना डेट अनसस्टेनेबल लेवल पे पहुंच गया है कि ये कैसे चुकाएंगे? देर इज नो स्ट्रक्चरल आंसर टू इट। एंड अभी पीपल आर बाइंग लेस ऑफ यूएस डेट। तो कौन बाय करेगा यूएस डेट? अगर दूसरी कंट्रीज का भरोसा कम हो रहा है यूएस पे, तो कौन बाय करेगा उनके डेट? इज देयर ओन सेंट्रल बैंक। If you look at Fed assets, नीचे के चार्ट में on the right hand side, Fed assets has been growing. तो Fed क्या करता है? They create more money, as you see in the chart on the bottom left hand side, के ब्लू लाइन जो है वो गोल्ड प्राइसेस है, The orange line is the money supply. They create more money आउट ऑफ थिन एयर बिकॉज कोई अभी करेंसी क्रिएशन का तो कोई बेस नहीं है जैसे गोल्ड हुआ करता था 1970s के पहले। अभी तो कोई बेस नहीं है गोल्ड मनी क्रिएशन का। तो उनको उनकी मर्जी के हिसाब से दे कैन प्रिंट एज मच मनी एज दे कैन दिस दे वांट। दैट इज व्हाट इज शोकेस इन द ऑरेंज लाइन। दे कीप प्रिंटिंग मनी। वो मनी यूएस सेंट्रल बैंक लेता है, डेट खरीदता है गवर्नमेंट से, उस वजह से कि फेड के एसेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं और उनकी डेफिसिट फंड होती है। सो ये जो ओवरऑल डेफिसिट डेट मनी सप्लाई क्रिएशन एक अनसस्टेनेबल पाथ पे चल रहा था, and now it's come to a point that the can cannot be kicked further down the road। उस वजह से दे आर इन अ वेरी स्ट्रक्चरल प्रॉब्लम। और ये प्रॉब्लम का कोई इजी सोल्यूशन नहीं है। यू हैव टू लूज रिड्यूस योर कंजम्पशन एंड योर डेफिसिट्स सो दैट ओवर टाइम दिस डेट प्रॉब्लम कैन गेट रिजॉल्व। तो आज आज कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है, और दैट इज वाई पीपल आर मूविंग आउट ऑफ डॉलर एंड दे आर गेटिंग इनटू गोल्ड। अनदर प्रॉब्लम फॉर दिस डेफिसिट इज डेफिसिट का एक और कंपोनेंट होता है इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस, इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट। तो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ जीडीपी हैज बीन इंक्रीजिंग। इट्स बीन, अगर 6% डेफिसिट है तो 4% के आसपास तो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट ही है। तो इतना डेट बढ़ गया है कि इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट ही 4%, आई मीन दे आर टू थर्ड ऑफ योर डेफिसिट। सो ये इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स तो कम नहीं होने वाले हैं क्योंकि उनके पास कोई रेवेन्यू या डेट रिडक्शन कोई स्ट्रैटेजी नहीं है। उस वजह से इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स कम नहीं होंगी, इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स कम नहीं होंगी तो डेफिसिट कम नहीं होगा। सो ओवरऑल, और ये सब डेट लोअर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स पे इशू किया गया है और इंटरेस्ट रेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं। इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर हायर देन देयर एवरेज डेट लेवल। उस वजह से उनकी डेट और भी बढ़ेगी, आई मीन उनके इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट और भी बढ़ेंगे विच विल लीड टू फर्दर डेफिसिट एंड देयरफॉर फर्दर डेट। सो अभी एक ऐसी जंक्चर पे यूएस इकोनॉमी आ गई है कि यूएस का इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट इज हायर देन देयर डिफेंस स्पेंडिंग। सो जब भी ये होता है, ऐसा बोला जाता है कि उनकी जो सुपर पावर स्टेटस है वो कहीं ना कहीं डिक्लाइनिंग मोड में है। जब भी interest payments have exceeded their defense spending, that is the critical juncture where they start losing their superpower। And US has been a superpower for last many years। और क्या question is that are they losing their are they going to lose their superpower status? Probably yes। एक ये रिलेशन होता है कि रेट्स जैसे जैसे कम होते हैं, गोल्ड को उतना ही इम्पेटस मिलता है कि गोल्ड में कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं होता है। तो इंटरेस्ट एक कंपटीशन हो जाता है रुपए गोल्ड के लिए। और जब भी इंटरेस्ट रेट्स अगर कम होना चालू होता है, गोल्ड में हमने अच्छी रन आते हुए देखी है। सो दिस इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग करंटली। इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर डिक्लाइनिंग एंड विद फर्दर डिक्लाइन, it's not declining because inflation is under control and gonna be under control। It is because growth is suffering today in the US, which is leading to gold prices or interest rates likely to come down and therefore gold prices to move up। अगर ये चार्ट देखें तो दिस इज टेलिंग यू यूएस रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट्स। तो रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट्स जो काफी कम लेवल से थोड़े से ऊपर आए थे, थोड़े पॉजिटिव टेरिटरी में आए थे बिकॉज ऑफ द प्रोस्पेक्ट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन। जो टैरिफ पॉलिसीज है जो यूएस में ओवरऑल हो रहा है, एंड देयर इज अ शिफ्ट टू हार्ड एसेट्स और कमोडिटी के प्राइस बढ़ रहे हैं, दैट विल लीड टू हायर इन्फ्लेशन। और हायर इन्फ्लेशन एक बाजू पे है, और दूसरी बाजू हमें लगता है कि इंटरेस्ट रेट्स यूएस में कम करने पड़ेंगे बिकॉज दे कैन नॉट फंड सो मच इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स। तो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स के लिए और ग्रोथ को सपोर्ट करने के लिए दे विल हैव टू लोअर रेट्स। और जो फेड की प्रोजेक्शंस है वो नीचे के चार्ट में ऑरेंज लाइन में दिख रही है। दोज आर द प्रोजेक्शंस विच आर कमिंग डाउन ओवर टाइम। सो रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट्स विल स्टार्ट कमिंग डाउन। और जब भी रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट्स नीचे आए हैं, गोल्ड में हमने अच्छी बुल रन देखी है। सो इफ यू लुक एट द डिकेड्स ऑफ 1970 टू 1980, और बी इट 2000 टू 2007 8 और 2010, जब भी रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट्स वर कमिंग डाउन, गोल्ड वाज मूविंग अप। और दिस इज अबाउट यूएस मनी सप्लाई एंड गोल्ड। जैसे जैसे मनी सप्लाई बढ़ा है, एंड यू हैव सीन एपिसोड्स वेयर लाइक जीएफसी या कोविड, suddenly we have seen a spurt in money supply, because जब भी इकोनॉमी की हालत अच्छी नहीं होती है, सेंट्रल बैंक इंटरवीन करता है दो तरीके से। एक, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स नीचे लेके आते हैं, और दूसरा, मनी सप्लाई, मनी प्रिंटिंग करके इकोनॉमी में डालते हैं, लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूज करते हैं ताकि इकोनॉमी को सपोर्ट मिले। So overall, this is one of the parameter, that was a compelling evidence के gold price ऊपर जाने चाहिए, because there was a big gap. If you look at 2021, there was a big gap between where gold prices were and where money supply was. Now gold prices have caught up with money supply, but this is current, right? US, given the problems that they have, will continue to print more money, which will lead to further upside in gold markets. This is what we are talking about, the relative strength of the banking sector. तो बैंकिंग सेक्टर है, उनका जो मार्केट रीडिंग है, द बैंकिंग सेक्टर डिवाइडेड बाय द S&P 500 इंडेक्स, इज द लोअर चार्ट दैट यू सी, is at the lowest level that we have seen. So the banking sector in the US, though there are no problems that we saw in 2008, 2009, but abhi bhi market reading of the banking sector is weak, and therefore the trust people have in the banking sector is relatively lower as compared to what it was in the past. I'm talking about the 90s, where the relative strength of the banking sector was rising, but currently it is pretty weak as compared to the overall what they think about the economy. Uh, this is about the credit spreads. Credit spreads, जब भी जो spread है, the green line that you see on the chart, the spread between the US 10-year bond and the US 2-year bond, जब भी ये spread lower होता है या negative होता है, तभी हमने recessionary aspects देखे हैं. So overall, if you look at the green line, was in negative the all of 22, 23, 24, and after certain time of that, we usually see recession coming in the US. So probably this is pointing towards a slowdown in the US economy, which is also evident if you look at the current jobs data. वो point कर रहा है कि US economy is indeed slowing down. ये एक डॉलर इंडेक्स का चार्ट है. सो आई थिंक जो डी डॉलराइजेशन डिबेट चल रहा है, उसका डायरेक्ट फायदा, डायरेक्ट एडवांटेज गोल्ड को है. सो गोल्ड प्राइसेस moves inversely to the dollar. And if you see time and again, whenever there was a bull market in gold, be it the 80s or be it the 2000s, dollar index was falling. And with current, where there is a trust deficit in the US, with the US, dollar will likely depreciate. और US जो गवर्नमेंट है, वो भी ट्राई कर रहे हैं कि उनकी डॉलर को वीकन करें. And therefore, if dollar weakens further from here on, gold prices will benefit. एंड दिस इज वन एविडेंस कि लोग जो ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट की बात कर रहे हैं, इज इट हैपनिंग रियल इन रियल? तो अगर डॉलर रिजर्व्स देखें, दे हैव कंटिन्यूसली बीन डिक्लाइनिंग. पीपल डोंट वांट टू होल्ड देयर मनी इन यूएस or US dollar assets, and therefore, as a percentage of their total reserves, other central banks that put money in dollar or other currencies, they have been moving out of the dollar, which was 61% of their total reserves or other central bank reserves, has come down to 46%. And if you look at gold on the other way, which used to be around 9-10% in around 2015-16, is now become 18.5%, or rather, it's gone now even higher to about 21%. और अगर टेबल देखें, तो देर आर मेनी इकोनॉमीज, राइट, where gold as a percentage of their total reserves is still very, very low. Look at Japan, it's about 6%, China is about 6%, India is about 10%, UK is about 15%. और अगर यूएस में भरोसा नहीं रहता है और कम होता है, तो दे विल मूव आउट ऑफ यूएस, एंड दे विल मूव इनटू other currencies or gold. So today, other currencies are also looking very, very weak. So gold is the only obvious choice that they are left with. This is what has happened from a central bank into gold. So it is a superb chart by Incrementum, and data is from World Gold Council. uh, अगर देखें तो 1950s to 70s, if you look at, central banks were continuously buying gold, right? Then came the Nixon. There was a London pool that collapsed, and there was a crisis in terms of uh, gold markets. उस वजह से सेंट्रल बैंक्स ने सेल किया था टू सपोर्ट दैट लंदन पुल कोलैप्स. But if you look at, after Nixon took the dollar away from the gold standard, away from the gold backing, central banks largely emerge as big sellers. So UK, Switzerland, most European countries sold a lot of gold in 1990s to 2000. And that is what created the bear market for gold. So गोल्ड में जो 90s के दशक में बड़ी मंदी आई थी, that was only because central banks were selling a lot of gold. But now things have changed completely. I remember it changed big way when China started buying gold in late 2000s, and India bought a very large amount of gold from IMF in 2009. It was more than 200 tons of gold that India bought in just one go. And that was because there was GFC, global financial crisis, और जो central banks की reaction थी in the developed market or to that global financial crisis was just to print more money. That was telling that, पैसे की value कम हो रही है, money value is declining continuously because they are creating money out of thin air. That was one first instance where they created about 3-4 trillion dollars of money in just a very short span of time, or that increase the relevance of gold. And if you look at now, after the Russia-Ukraine war, they have been massive buyers of gold. So last 3 साल में central banks ने 1,000 टन से ज़्यादा gold buy किया है. And we don't see this changing. We had written post the GFC that diversification of reserves and investment into gold will increase, and that is what exactly that we saw post 2008. And it has accelerated after what we saw in Russia Ukraine, or after Trump coming to power and unveiling very erratic policies that we have seen. और अभी भी लोगों के पास डॉलर एसेट्स काफी ज्यादा मात्रा में हैं. जापान, जिसका होल्डिंग इन गोल्ड एज वी सॉ इन दिस चार्ट, is still very very low. 6% of their reserve assets are in gold, and they still own about $1 trillion of US treasuries. China still owns about 700 billion dollars of treasuries. UK owns about 700 billion dollars of treasuries. Canada still owns about 400 billion dollars of treasuries. All these people can move into gold because their gold reserves are still very very low, and they are buying in incremental chunks, as we have seen in last 3 years. So I think this diversification trend, central bank buying trend, is here to stay, will continue going forward as well. And this is how the journey has been, right? uh, पहले अगर देखें तो Chinese renminbi at some point in time was a dominant currency, or gold was rather a dominant currency. Then came the advent of, if you see the green, the pound sterling, और उसके पहले French franc was one of the bigger asset pools of reserve assets. ये जो भी reserve currency थी, those were the dominant holdings in other central bank assets. So gold जो bottom में है, जो एक सबसे बड़ा chunk था, has now started increasing. उसके पहले गोल्ड जब भी था तभी उसके पहले sterling was one of the dominant currencies. Then came the Deutsche Mark, and then we saw the dollar becoming a reserve currency. So what this trend tells you, this trend tells you that every 100 years हमने एक करेंसी जो रिजर्व करेंसी होती है उसका कोलैप्स आते हुए देखा है. Like Portuguese currency from 1450 to 1530 lasted about 80 years. Spanish currency 110 years. Dutch mark 80 years. French 95 years, British from 1815 to 1920 105 years. US dollar, as we speak, has completed 105 years. So generally, if you have to take a ballpark number, reserve currencies have lasted for nearly 100 years, and US dollar has just completed about 105 years. So is the dollar about to lose its reserve currency status? If that is the big reset that we are seeing, if that is the big shift that we are seeing, I think gold will do really well if that were to manifest. And the if you talk in number terms, right? Total central bank reserves are about $17 trillion. Total forex reserves are about $13 trillion. Dollar reserves are still $7 trillion. अगर डॉलर कोलैप्स हो रहा है, जैसे हमने देखा था कि हर 100 साल में जो भी रिजर्व करेंसी है वो अपना स्टेटस घुमाती है इन टर्म्स ऑफ बीइंग अ रिजर्व एसेट, अगर ये होता है ये टाइम पे, तो एवरी 1% शिफ्ट फ्रॉम डॉलर टू गोल्ड, इवन एट $4,000 प्राइस लेवल, लीड्स टू 530 टन्स ऑफ गोल्ड डिमांड. सो लास्ट 3 साल में जब भी हमने 1,000 टन की डिमांड देखी है, नियरली 2% और मोर हैज शिफ्टेड फ्रॉम डॉलर टू गोल्ड. सो इफ अगर वो होता है, ये ट्रेंड आगे जाके भी चलता है, जो हमें लग रहा है चलेगा, तो गोल्ड की डिमांड बनी रहेगी, एंड दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ डिमांड दैट यू आर सीइंग. अभी भी $60 ट्रिलियन शिफ्ट हो सकता है फ्रॉम डॉलर टू गोल्ड. एंड gold ही क्यों? Why gold? There are other assets also where things can shift. One is, अभी भी central banks nearly $4.5 trillion गोल्ड में होल्ड करते हैं. गोल्ड का मार्केट कैप ओवरऑल ऑलमोस्ट $27 ट्रिलियन का है. अगर सिल्वर का बात करें तो सिल्वर का मार्केट कैप ओवरऑल जस्ट $2.6 ट्रिलियन है. सेंट्रल बैंक्स अभी सऊदी और रशिया ने थोड़ा बहुत गोल्ड सिल्वर बाय किया है, बट अदरवाइज सिर्फ सेंट्रल बैंक्स गोल्ड बाय करते हैं. So I think if there has to be a shift happening, gold is the only beneficial asset that I can see, which has the liquidity, which has the trust, which has deep markets to absorb the shift that happens from dollar to gold. Coming to the outlook, what we think that there are ongoing structural challenges that the US faces, और जो ट्रम्प की पॉलिसीज है वो कहीं ना कहीं ये मूव एक्सेलरेट कर रही है. So if Trump were not there, we may have not seen such a radical move that we have seen in gold prices. It would still have moved higher, but the pace has accelerated because of Trump and his policies that are there. Demand, we think, will continue because हर पोर्टफोलियो में, पेंशन फंड्स बोलिए या सॉवरेन फंड्स बोलिए या सेंट्रल बैंक्स बोलिए या इवन रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स बोलिए, HNIs की बात करें, गोल्ड का एलोकेशन अभी भी बहुत कम है पोर्टफोलियोज में. सो यहाँ पे बढ़ने की चांसेस काफ़ी ज़्यादा है. और यूएस के मैक्रो फंडामेंटल सही नहीं है. वी आर स्टेयरिंग प्रोबेबली एट स्लोइंग ग्रोथ. इन्फ्लेशन प्रोस्पेक्ट्स हाई है. एक स्टैगफ्लेशनरी सिनारियो हो सकता है यूएस में, विच इज़ यूजुअली वेरी वेरी पॉजिटिव फॉर गोल्ड. सो आई थिंक काफ़ी सारे फैक्टर्स गोल्ड के सपोर्ट में हैं. इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि गोल्ड में करेक्शन नहीं आ सकता है. देयर कैन बी करेक्शंस, एंड दिस इज व्हाट कैन क्रिएट अ करेक्शन इन गोल्ड. इफ देर इज अ जियो पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी, जैसे हम देख रहे हैं कि गाजा और इसराइल में अगर एक सीज फायर हो जाता है, या यूक्रेन या रशिया में सीज फायर हो जाता है, एनी थिंग, देर इज सम अमाउंट ऑफ जियो पॉलिटिकल प्रीमियम स्टिल इन द प्राइस. तो अगर वो सब सही हो जाता है तो गोल्ड में थोड़ा सा करेक्शन आ सकता है. इंटरेस्ट रेट्स बढ़ जाते हैं. अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स जैसे पॉल वोकर ने 1980s में, विच वॉज एट अराउंड 2-3%, सीधा लेके गए थे इंटरेस्ट रेट्स 20%, दैट किल्ड ग्रोथ, दैट किल्ड एवरीथिंग. बट दैट ब्रॉट मोर सैनिटी टू पॉलिसी मेकिंग, दैट ब्रॉट मोर सैनिटी टू द डॉलर. अगर ऐसा कुछ होता है कि इंटरेस्ट रेट्स जो अभी 3-4% है, अगर 20% 25% पे लेके जाते हैं, तो आई थिंक, बट दैट विल ब्रेक the back of the US economy from a growth perspective. But if that were to happen, then gold may collapse. अगर कोई ऑल्टरनेटिव आ जाता है यूएस डॉलर में, समझो अगर ब्रिक करेंसी आ गया, इट्स स्टिल अ वेरी वेरी फार डिस्टेंट, इट्स अ ड्रीम, बट which we think the possibility of that is very very low. बिटकॉइन कोई ऑल्टरनेटिव नहीं है, मगर अगर कोई और ऑल्टरनेटिव आ जाता है या सही मायने में एक्सेप्टेबल होता है, तो गोल्ड में थोड़ा सा करेक्शन आ सकता है। अगर यूएस इकोनॉमी या यूएस पॉलिसी मेकिंग, यूएस फिस्कल मैथ है, उसमें अगर कोई रिस्टोरिंग ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस हो जाता है, तो गोल्ड नीचे आ सकता है। तो दीज आर द थिंग्स दैट यू शुड ऑब्जर्व, but anything doesn't look very very close to happening, and therefore gold should be stronger. And gold, how does that fit overall in your client's portfolio, is something like this. So India is has been a large consumer of gold, जो सेंट्रल बैंक्स के पास नहीं है। सबसे ज्यादा गोल्ड यूएस सेंट्रल बैंक के पास है, 8,000 टन्स। इंडिया में ओवरऑल 25,000 टन से ज्यादा गोल्ड है। सो इंडियन वुमेन, ऑल अदर कंट्रीज कंबाइंड, सेंट्रल बैंक्स कंबाइंड, से ज्यादा गोल्ड इंडिया में है एज कंपेयर टू व्हाट दे ओन। India has a love story with gold, which is benefiting us today with such a high level of gold prices. But one thing, despite being a dominant player in the gold market, we are still a price taker. हम थोड़ा बहुत प्राइस इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकते हैं, बस उतना ही, मगर वी आर स्टिल प्राइस टेकर्स, नॉट प्राइस मेकर्स. And this is at different levels of gold price and dollar, where the gold price can go. Today, gold price is at $4,000 and about $88 USD INR, which is around 123,000 in gold prices. So अगर gold $5,000 जाता है and rupee goes to 91, Indian gold prices will be very close to 1,60,000 rupees. अगर gold prices गिर के 3,500 हो जाता है, एंड रूपी फ्रॉम करंट 80 क्लोज टू 89 levels goes to 87 levels, gold prices will be 1,06,000 or 1,07,000 approximately. So can gold go to 1.5 lakhs if rupee goes to around 1991 and gold price goes to 5,000? That is very very possible, or it will exceed that prices. So it depends on where the gold price will be, which looks positive. Rupee probably can remain range bound or may depreciate a bit. So depending on where it ends, this is where the gold price can be. So this is how asset classes have done since 2005, last 20 years of data. So if you were in debt, probably you wouldn't have benefited, but it was a straight line almost. Gold has surpassed any other asset class. Silver is trying to catch up, but is still far lower as compared to where gold is. And now, standing today, gold has beaten even equities. Importantly, to know, whenever stock markets have suffered losses, gold has done well. So look at 2008, gold equities were down 50%, gold was up nearly 30%. 2011, equities were down 25%, gold was up 32%. Or even years like except 2015, where equities were tad negative and gold was a tad negative, barring any year you take where gold Sensex has not delivered good returns or has been flattish to a negative return, gold has done well. Even in low year like 2016, for example, Sensex had a return of 2%. You don't invest in Sensex for 2% returns. Gold was up 11%. So whenever there have been episodes where there is negative to low returns in Sensex, gold generally has done well. And this is what it tells you. People tell you that we will mimic what the West does. They just invest in equity and fixed income. They don't invest in gold. We will also not invest in gold. Here is an evidence where if you had a equity debt portfolio and if you had an equity gold portfolio, equity gold has done much better in all aspects when it comes to returns, when it comes to risk, and therefore giving you a better risk adjusted return. right? If you look, see standard deviation, which is the second line, standard deviation of equity is close to 15%, debt is 3%, gold is 13%. But when you combine equity and debt into a proportion, your standard deviation is still 12.4%. Whereas if you combine in the same proportion equity and gold, your standard deviation is even lower. That is because both gold and equity are negatively correlated asset classes, and therefore leads to a lower drawdown than even an equity debt portfolio, and therefore a better Sharpe ratio. So don't replicate what the West does. For India, which has seen a continuous depreciation of the currency, you need to have an asset like gold in your portfolio. So if you were to ask me what works better, an equity gold portfolio works much better, and debt can only be that emergency corpus that you can build for your clients. This is what, overall, if you see the white line is gold, right, in both the charts. So in GFC, global financial crisis, when equities tanked, silver tanked along with it. And even in COVID, when gold did well, silver went along with it. Silver, you should understand, is more of an industrial commodity. Industrial commodity does well when economy is doing well. और वही एक्सपोजर जो सिल्वर देता है इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को, वही आपको आपके इक्विटी से मिल रहा है. सो इट डज नॉट हेल्प यू डाइवर्सिफाई, रादर एज सीन इन द चार्ट इट गोज अलोंगसाइड विद equities, and gold goes in the opposite direction. एंड गोल्ड सिल्वर रेशियो की बात करते हैं लोग लोग स्वेयर बाय दिस एंड इन्वेस्ट बाय दिस, but there is a catch. If you look at the era of 1970s, right, 1970, 1980s, the ratio was in the band of almost 20-25 on the lower side to 50-60 on the higher side. Average was 37. Come 2000s, what we have seen, that lower bound on the average is close to 50 and the higher bound is 80 and the average was 60. और अगर अभी की बात करें 2015 के बाद की बात करें तो द लोअर बाउंड हैज बीन अराउंड 60 एंड द अपर बाउंड हैज बीन अराउंड 100, और एवरेज has gone up to nearly 80. So different over time, differences in gold silver relationship has changed. पहले जो 40 के आसपास एवरेज था has gone to nearly 60, and 60 average has gone to 80. So if you were trading based on the past relationship, you will suffer, and therefore you should keep that into mind, that averages are shifting in favor of gold, and therefore it will help you to keep that into consideration before just doing your gold silver trade. And one question that usually ask is, कितना proportion gold होना चाहिए portfolio का. So portfolio home में gold होना चाहिए, that's very well established, but कितना proportion? So I think 15 to 20% allocation is an optimal allocation where your risk comes down significantly. Say, for example, your drawdowns come down from 52% to nearly 36% of your portfolio if you have the right allocation to gold. And your returns also go up. A pure equity portfolio has given 13% return. A 80% equity and 20% gold portfolio has given you 14.2% return. And your drawdown has come down from 52% that you saw in GFC to about 36%. तो एक गोल्ड में एलोकेशन 15-20% का बना के चलेंगे तो आई थिंक इट इज ऑलवेज बेनिफिशियल. It is not only now, if you remove the recent returns that gold has given, still a 15% allocation always help you increase portfolio returns and reduce your overall risk from your portfolio. So I think एक allocation बना के चलिए. लोग पहले कहते थे कि 2-5% गोल्ड होना चाहिए, then it increased to 10%. Now we are seeing people have started talking about 15% allocation to gold. So I think that's the right number that we are inching towards. 15 to 20% allocation always helps portfolio. And how to buy it in today's parlance, just to keep it short, you don't have a match to gold ETFs or gold funds. They are regulated, they are backed by gold. You get in and out in very close to what is the wholesale market price. You also don't have to worry about liquidity, etc., purity of gold. You can buy sitting at home. Uh, so I think it's the best way to buy gold funds, gold saving funds, or gold fund of funds as they're called. They're the best thing to buy when it comes to the gold choices that you have today. And one important thing is they are completely insured, and therefore the if there is any theft or any, even if there is a any kind of terrorist attacks, it's fully covered for that as well. So I think uh, gold funds are the best to buy even today. Start allocating for your clients. And we were the first, one of the lowest denomination gold ETF in the country. Now things have changed in terms of most have become at par. But one important characteristic that we still carry on today is हम एकमात्र एएमसी है इंडिया में जो गोल्ड की प्योरिटी टेस्ट करते हैं. Gold, after all, is a physical asset and then therefore can be prone to many various risk. और वो रिस्क को कैसे आप रिजॉल्व करेंगे? वन इज कीप इट इन हाईली सेफ वॉल्ट्स. सेकेंड इज टू हैव इंश्योरेंस ऑन ऑल द गोल्ड दैट यू हैव. एंड थर्ड, उनकी प्योरिटी टेस्ट करके सो दैट यू हैव फुल प्रूफ the holdings that you have in terms of they are surely gold at the end of the day. So I think with the quantum gold fund, I think it's the best way that you can allocate today of your client capital. We urge you to allocate and start allocating and building your client portfolio towards the quantum gold fund and have that as a allocation. Uh, or else you can also have multi-asset fund, and there is a allocation to gold which makes a difference, and it kind of is superior as compared to the balance advantage funds in some sense, because you get everything plus gold in a multi-asset fund as opposed to just a balance advantage fund. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I hope I have added some value to you on gold, and I will hand it over to Mohit for further question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chirag. I think very well covered. Uh, I We have some questions already in queue. However, by the time I receive more, I would urge all the partners who have not impaneled with us so far. The scan, the codes are available. You can just simply scan it and do a quick impanelment by the time we assemble the question and answers. Chirag, let me start. There are some very interesting questions which have come. So the first question is our view on whether Fed is likely to raise interest rates going forward.
Ideally, they should, but they will not. So I think the Fed will cut rates going forward. Uh, and we think that emanates from the fact that US economy is slowing down. So US economy is clearly slowing down and will have at some point in time a spillover to financial markets. And जब भी financial markets में कुछ panic आता है, Fed has always resort and will always resort to cut rates. So I think we are likely, the given the scenario that we have on the inflation front, they should ideally be raising rates or keeping rates constant at least. But I think they will cut rates going forward. The growth is really slowing down, and they have to support the economy. And second thing is, as I showed in my charts, that interest payments has been ballooning. And if the debt rolls over at this interest rate level, they will further have a problem. And hence, to support the government, Fed will be compelled to cut rates to ensure that the interest payments don't go through the roof.
Sure. Next question. How much of the current gold price rise is attributable to central banks trying to hedge their bets against dollar reserve? After that, they have weaponized it against Russia by freezing their assets.
No, a fair chunk of it is attributable to central bank buying over last 2 3 years that we have seen. and especially accelerating this year with Trump in office. Uh, so I think it is, but it was not something that was not expected. If you look at our the articles that we've written and put out in public domain, we were expecting this trend to come in since GFC. So US has been in an unsustainable situation, and that situation has become worsened over years. And now it has reached a roadblock that the cannot be further pushed down the road. And hence, they were left with no choice but to get out of dollar and into something that can protect or help them diversify. And that is what has happened. So I think this trend will further continue, and I don't see that ending. They may cool off a bit in between, but barring that, I don't see them changing their stance in a significant manner like what we saw in 90s. 90s they were selling a lot of gold, but I don't think in this scenario they will sell a lot of gold. So if you look at the buying post GFC has been significantly higher and has accelerated with deteriorating conditions now, that creating, because Fed itself is still owning about 7 trillion of US debt, and other countries are saying we don't want to have more US debt because the situation with regards to deficit and debt in the US is pretty precarious, and therefore we have to move out or at least diversify some of our additional holdings out of the dollar. So that is what we are seeing, and further shifts will only increase demand, which we think will happen going forward as well.
Sure. Thank you, Chirag. The next question is uh, silver ETF पे आपका क्या व्यू है? Is it a right time to invest in silver ETFs?
सिल्वर, सी यू हैव टू सी गोल्ड एंड डॉलर में, गोल्ड एंड सिल्वर में बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है. सिल्वर इज मोर अ टैक्टिकल प्ले. इफ यू थिंक दैट डिमांड सप्लाई इज इंक्रीजिंग सिग्निफिकेंटली और उसके वजह से आपको लेना है. बट टू टेल यू अ फैक्ट, फॉर ऑल द टॉक अबाउट जो हम ईवी की बात कर रहे हैं या ग्रीन एनर्जी की बात कर रहे हैं, लास्ट 3 साल की एग्रीगेट डिमांड ऑफ सिल्वर इज कांस्टेंट. इट्स नॉट इंक्रीज अ बिट. राइट. सेकेंड इज जो भी फोरकास्टेड है वहां पे वो लोग बड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट नंबर दिखाते हैं दैट टेक्स डिमांड सप्लाई इन आउट ऑफ इनटू इन इक्वेशन, एंड देयरफॉर बताते हैं कि सिल्वर डेफिसिट में है. सो गोल्ड में क्या हो रहा है कि फंडामेंटल्स आर ड्राइविंग इन्वेस्टमेंट इनटू गोल्ड, but in silver it is more of the speculation that is resetting the fundamentals of silver. So it's your choice what you want to do. But as I explained, that silver cannot be part of your asset allocation. It has to be something that you buy tactically and you move out tactically. It's not a long term thing that you need to have in your portfolio. Look at where silver had exceeded even in the last bull market that we saw in 2010-11, but only in the fag end it started moving up. And look at the fall that silver had after that, and look at the recovery it took. Like from it peaked in 2010-11, and it did not surpass that level until 2023. Right. So a bear market, or to get to back to that level, it took it about 12 13 years to get back to that same value. So silver is very volatile, is very speculative. Uh, I don't believe in a demand supply mismatch story. Silver, any, or to for that fact, any industrial commodity, जब भी उसमें सप्लाई डिमांड मिसमैच आती है या प्राइस बढ़ना चालू होता है, कोई ना कोई टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट आ जाता है, कोई ना कोई सब्स्टिट्यूशन आ जाता है, जिस वजह से उसका यूजेज कम हो जा डिमांड कम हो जाता है, और उस वजह से प्राइस में वापस करेक्शन आना चालू हो जाता है. सो दैट इज ऑल्सो ट्रू विद सिल्वर. टू गिव यू वन एग्जाम्पल, कि सिल्वर में एक देर इज अ न्यू यूजेज विच इज नाउ वेरीफाइड, विच सिल्वर इज यूज इन सोलर पैनल्स, राइट. सोलर पैनल में सिल्वर पेस्ट लगता है. So there is a new technology that's come which will cut silver usage in solar panel by 30%. There has been copper is being tried in place of silver in solar panels. So अगर कहीं ना कहीं सक्सेस मिलता है, So I think silver usage that is much being talked about, जो narrative है, rhetoric है, वो कहीं ना कहीं fizzle out हो सकता है, which is more a likely scenario to me as opposed to silver being fundamentally uh, strong and therefore prices moving up. So I think silver prices can go up. Yes, it can go up, but will it last, or is there a structural story behind it? I don't think so.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Chirag. There are two questions from one partner. Number one is you mentioned that the Japan holds the highest US Treasury bonds.
Yeah.
What do you think could be their strategy if, and what will happen if they start selling the US Treasury bonds aggressively?
Uh, So I think yes, they have been holding for quite some time now, or they had rather increased over last few years. Um but that is pertaining to the exports that they do to the US. So they do fairly large number of auto exports to the US, which has led to that bulging of holdings of treasuries that they have. But I think at some point in time, Japan will also be compelled to diversify away from the dollar, which I don't see a very distant thing. And as they kind of diversify, U.S. treasuries, there will pressure on U.S. treasuries. But I think the only alternative or more suitable alternative for them will be gold. So I think gold prices may get further boost, like, for example, the Central Bank of Brazil last month bought 16 tons of gold. This was the first time they bought after a fairly long time. So newer and newer central banks are joining in the diversification of reserve assets that we have been talking about. And I think Japan will also do it uh, sooner rather than later.
Okay. The next question is on China. Do you think Chinese currency could replace US dollar, considering the confidence in China has been increasing across the globe?
Confidence in China has only been increasing over last 6 months when its stock market has started to move up. So I don't think that many are very comfortable with the Chinese policy making. The transparency that they don't have is very, very perplexing for people to have that confidence in China. So if you look at it's also depicted in the stock market, right? If you do a chart of Chinese GDP and Chinese stock market, the GDP is much, much higher. Like what you see in this chart, the difference between gold and debt is similar between Chinese GDP and Chinese equity market. So Chinese GDP has gone through the roof. It's done really well over in the decade of 2000s. It was growing at between 10 to 15%. Uh, but stock markets or investors in stock markets were not rewarded. Currently, because it was cheap, it had gone through its own correction. There were some policy changes that were starting to see in China, and therefore its stock market has gone up slightly over last 1 year. But barring that, we don't see there is enough confidence in Chinese policy making, Chinese disclosures, transparency, etc., which still will take its own time for people to get confidence in their currency. But one thing is certain: if China says that we are trying to back our currency with gold, probably some may hold that currency. But barring that, I don't see that Chinese currency has a strength to kind of become a reserve currency, at least not in next few years.
Okay. Thanks. The next question is that you mentioned that there is a physical gold which is stored in the vaults. So
Absolutely.
maybe if you could explain it a little more, what are these vaults, and if
Mhm.
you can name maybe some firms who are,
Sure.
yeah.
So, how it works is there has to be a SEBI appointed custodian, which needs to have a vaulting facility. So, these vaulting facilities are leased by or run by professionals, professional agencies, and ours gold is stored in Brinks. So, Brinks is a listed company globally, and it is not their assets. They are just safekeeping that gold for on behalf of the trust, mutual fund trust that we have. So these are state of the art vaults that we have. It has all the safe guarding things in place to ensure gold is absolutely safe. So they have ironclad vaults. If someone starts, drilling the walls of the vault, they will take at least 24 hours to complete the drilling. That kind of iron cladding is there in the walls of the vaults. They have all kind of, they have panic alarms, they have motion sensors, they have arm guards. So they have every thing that's needed from a safeguard perspective for the vaults. uh, Gold is stored in the strong room, which has individual funds bins kept where our gold lies. So each and every gold bar is there are boxes of 25 kilos that are in the bins where our gold is kept. Uh, uh, to access the strong room, there are at least two people required to open or who are authorized, and both have to be there with their own keys to open the vault. Without which, that strong room you cannot enter the strong room. So all kind of safekeeping measures are in place to ensure that gold is safe. Apart from this, so gold is segregated for each of the fund or each of the owners of gold. I mean, say Quantum Gold Fund is or ETF is one of the owner there, and our gold is kept completely segregated into our own bin and not commingled with other gold that's lying in the vaults. So overall, I think it's completely safe, and to take no chances, the entire gold is completely insured. So, so there is full insurance, including terrorism cover, for the gold that we have in the vaults. Apart from that, which we think that we are the only ones to do it, there are statutory auditors, custodian auditors that go and do it. But apart from that, our team at Quantum goes right from the ops, risk, and fund management teams go to the vault every month to check each and every gold bar that we have for the fund. And once in a year, and I am sure about this at least, that we are the only ones to do it, we do a purity test of all the gold that is held by the fund. So you can see on our website, there is a purity certificate. We hire a third party independent agency to kind of check each and every gold bar when they come to our vaults. And they will issue a certificate based on the findings or checking of the each and every gold bar that they have done. So if you look at our website, there is a purity certificate which mentions each and every gold bar that we own and the purity against the gold bar as tested by the independent agency. Hope that answers.
Sure. Moving a little bit away from gold, and the question is on impact of US interest rates on Indian IT sector. Do you think that post uh, TCS results, what will be the what's the view being formed on the IT sector?
Yeah, so IT sector currently valuations are much favorable. The only uncertainty, given the uncertainty in policy making and businesses overall, the spend by companies has gone down. So if interest rates were to come down and support the economy overall and uncertainty subsides, probably the discretionary spend by companies who are clients of these IT companies who consume these IT services probably may increase, which will benefit these companies. So even there is a slight impetus in growth, I think there would be interest in this sector given the valuations where they stand today. So I think we are slightly positive on the IT sector overall, or getting more positive, given the valuations where they trade today.
We have a question from one of the partner, Mr. Shah. Sir, you are allowed to talk. Please go ahead. Mr. Dolar Shah. Mr. Shah, your line is unmuted. Okay, I will move on, Chirag.
Sure.
There are few questions regarding allocation of gold in our multi-asset fund.
Mhm.
So, can you specify if there are limits to how much we can allocate towards gold?
Yeah, so uh, given asset allocation is more long term, our range is between 10 to 20% in the multi-asset fund. So clearly, from a asset allocation perspective, that 10 and 20% is a good range for you to have, and also have enough flexibility to increase or decrease that allocation. So our range is 10 and 20% that we have kept in our offer documents, which we adhere to. And we think that it's decent enough to, play our conviction or have a diversification that gold provides enough in our portfolio, and also enough flexibility to increase or decrease as the case may be.
Okay. Any possibility of reducing gold debt portion and increasing allocation to gold?
Uh, So I think like I showed you in my charts, right? There is a 20/80 portfolio, which is decent enough from a perspective, and you need some allocation to debt, given that it helps you rebalance the portfolio very effectively. So from that standpoint, yes, I mean, if we get a correction or so and help in building our allocation to gold, certainly we will want to increase our allocation to gold, and that will come by reducing our debt allocation. So range is going to be the same, but we will be more opportunistic in terms of building our gold allocation whenever there is an opportunity, and that increase will certainly come by decreasing our debt allocation.
Sure. There are a couple of partners who have actually asked for the presentation to be shared with them.
Hmm.
Yes, post the after the presentation is done, your relationship manager will be able to share this PPT with you. Moving on, Chirag, another question is on, do we see the demand of gold is just a transition between dollar and the new global dominant currency? Or do we see such rise in gold prices while transitioning between, did we estimated it for earlier as well? So you had highlighted that the currencies move, dominance moved from assuming Portuguese to USD in 2025. So is it that this gold prices are moving up because of this transition is happening?
Uh, I think the overall faith in paper currency, given that whoever is chosen to be at par in any of the say dominant currency economy, has 5 years, right? Has 4 years, 5 years, depending on the regime that they are, and they want to come up for the second term, which leads them to force central banks to cut rates, infuse liquidity, showcase growth, etc., so that they can come back to power the next time. So this, what do you say? This issue is gonna be a common parlance across currencies. We didn't have that issue earlier because currencies were pegged to gold. 1970 onwards, there is the currencies are not pegged to gold, and therefore even further, that we have seen that currency has been debased at will whenever they wanted to. So from that standpoint, I think if currencies are not pegged to gold, there is going to be an issue, and if they are pegged to gold, then gold has always been there. It's not a transition asset anymore. So I don't think that this is a short term thing. uh, it will help transition, certainly, but that transition does not seem to be very closer to us, because there is no other currency capable enough, strong enough, liquid enough, uh, that people are confident enough to put their asset into that currency. So if say even the US, if they come to more rational decision making, like they control their deficit, they control their debt, they repay their debt, they kind of don't frugally print money, etc. then probably, it could very well still occupy the reserve currency status. But we don't see that happening very soon. If we see those trends, we will alert you all. But I don't think that is happening anytime soon. So I don't think it's just a transition, because transition doesn't seem to be closer to us, even if it were a transition asset. But I think the belief that this has led to, I think gold will still occupy a good place in reserve currency assets.
Chirag, a question on gold ETF.
Mhm.
Uh, Gold ETF में when we receive the inflows, uh, क्या ये केवल वॉल्ट में रखा जाता है या और we trade it also to earn more profits? And if you can maybe throw some light on the costing part also.
Sure. तो कोई भी नया यूनिट क्रिएट नहीं होता है जब तक गोल्ड वॉल्ट में नहीं आता है. सो पहले गोल्ड वॉल्ट में आता है, उसका कंफर्मेशन कस्टोडियन से आरएनटी को होता है, फंड को होता है. उसके बाद आरएनटी उसके यूनिट्स क्रिएट करता है एट द इंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द फंड, बट दे ऑल्सो वांट द कंफर्मेशन ऑफ द कस्टोडियन. सो कभी भी यूनिट्स क्रिएट नहीं होते हैं, सो ईच एंड एवरी यूनिट इज बैक्ड बाय गोल्ड. ये गोल्ड वहीं पे रहता है, वॉल्ट में ही रहता है अनटिल एंड देयर इज रिडेम्पशन. इसमें कोई ट्रेडिंग नहीं होती है, कोई लीजिंग नहीं होती है. गोल्ड इज जस्ट लाइंग इन द वॉल्ट, एंड दैट इज व्हाट गोल्ड शुड बी. अगर ट्रेडिंग में चला गया तो आई थिंक इट्स गोना बी अ डिजास्टर. सो गोल्ड वहीं पे रहता है, एंड दैट इज हाउ इट शुड बी. फ्रॉम अ कॉस्टिंग परस्पेक्टिव, the biggest cost that goes for a gold ETF is the insurance cost. Safekeeping and insurance is the biggest cost that you have. Or insurance is not cheap, but it is very, very necessary. When clients of yours are putting gold in lockers, कोई भी लॉकर इंश्योर नहीं हो सकता है. उसमें क्या कंटेंट्स है आर नॉट वेरीफाइड, उसका इंश्योरेंस भी नहीं होता है. Whereas here it is better because it is 100% insured. So overall expense ratio of the gold ETF is 0.6%, and on the combined ratio of the gold ETF and the gold saving fund is 1% plus GST.
Sure. Chirag, what is your view on next 3 to 6 months on gold? Well, you have answered it, but if you can just share your views.
So I think my view is very, very constructive. We have not seen any changes to the fundamentals of gold. They are equally robust even today. Uh, but having said that, I wouldn't say that there could not be a correction. So no asset can keep going up in a straight line. I don't know till where this move will extend, or at 4,000 it will get capped and correct and then move higher. But I think this is not the cycle peak. Gold prices may further move higher from here, given the fundamentals that we are seeing. But this trend of diversification of reserves and investments, even in portfolios, we have not seen allocations reach to optimal levels as yet, which will happen, I think, going forward. So I think fundamentally gold looks still positive, but there could be bouts of correction. Even in 2008, for example, in the depths of crisis, which was very, very positive for gold, gold had corrected initially by 30%. Gold was at $1,000. It fell below $700 in that period. In a very short time frame, in a month's time, it fell to from 1,000 to $700 or below 700, and then move back up to 1,000. It was very, very fast move, but it did happen. So there could be corrections. I cannot rule them out. There could be 10, 15, 20% correction even. But the fundamentals are positive. So if you were to advise to your client what they should do, if you don't have enough gold, use any correction, or take next 6 12 months to build your allocation to gold. If you have enough, or if you have enough, then probably stay put. If you have excess, then probably you could rebalance your portfolio to some extent. But even within that, if there is an opportunity that comes your way, probably you should be buying more. So I think this is how you should look at gold for your clients. Uh, and the fundamentals are still constructive. But having said that, you should be ready for a correction if it were to occur.
Okay. Another question is on the reserves that India has
Mhm.
of gold, and despite of having such large reserve, why are we price taker and not price maker, and how can we fix this issue?
So we have clearly put up in our thing. I think government regulations are at blame. Gold as an asset should be freely allowed to move in and out. So today, even to get in, there are only certain agencies that can bring gold in India. It has to be passed through certain banking channels or through certain accredited houses by RBI that can only import gold into India. Once imported, you cannot export it back. There are restrictions on exporting back. So there is no free movement of gold in and out, which is one of the biggest issues that India faces when it comes to gold. Even today, the custom duty stands at 6%. There is a GST of 3%. So 9% is the difference that we have with the international gold prices. When you have such distortions of free movement, or there are levies over and above the gold prices, it's not at parity to global rates, you cannot become a price maker. You need that evidence. So today, if India influences gold market, for example, if there is a lot of buying that happens, then India will be able to influence gold market very easily. If there is a lot of, say, gold prices move to $10,000 and some Indians start selling gold, say 10% of their what they own, prices will come down. But unfortunately, regulations do not allow them to export it back. So those restrictions do not allow us to become price makers, and we are still a price taker.
Chirag, as I move on to the last few questions, I would request all of you to please provide your feedback. The link is already shared with you. Uh, Please help us improving by sharing your inputs, your feedbacks as to how can we make these sessions better for you. Chirag, the next question is on that there are new central banks which have actually started holding silver reserves. And is it making a new structural growth story there? Uh, Case in point being some Arab countries which have started accumulating silver.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe if you can throw some light.
Yeah, I've read that Russia has bought some silver and Saudi Arabia has bought some silver. But I don't think that silver market has enough depth or any relevance when it comes to a reserve asset. So I think it may be a small, like for example, some central bank were also thinking or have bought some bitcoins, for example. Does it make it a reserve asset? I don't think so. It may be a trading asset, silver and Bitcoin. Look at the market cap of silver, 2.7 trillion, 2.6 trillion, Bitcoin, 2.7 trillion, 2.2 trillion. Gold is at 26, 27 trillion dollars of market cap. So I think those assets don't have enough, enough supplies, enough liquidity, enough depth for them to become reserve assets. Uh, there is, I mean, all these years, central banks were just owning gold, right? So there is relevance of central banks treating gold as a reserve asset, but silver not so. I don't think like the reserve currency of the world, US, for example, has only gold in their holding. RBI has just gold in their holding. So I don't think that, silver has that. Thing of becoming a anywhere close to being a reserve asset. There could be few couple of instances here and there, but I don't think Russia or even Saudi Arabia will build on to their silver purchases that they have done. So I personally don't think so that that's a possibility. But as I said, you can never say never. But I don't think that's a real possibility overall.
Okay. Uh, are gold ETFs Sharia compliant?
I think so. I think they are compliant, absolutely compliant, because there is no lending happening. There is no most of entire asset lies in gold itself. So I don't think they are not compliant. So I think gold as an asset is it is an asset. It is not anyone else's liability. Rather, goes very close to become Sharia compliant in some sense.
Just to add on to that, couple of partners who are supporting us in Quantum Ethical Fund, they have also been recommending our gold fund. And whatever STPs, systematic transfer plan that we are getting, the STP is actually happening from gold funds. So I believe it makes gold as Sharia compliant. Uh, if- I will just quickly run through couple of comments which have come.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so whether we are, how do we find the intrinsic value of gold?
So the intrinsic value comes from it's being used as monetary asset or as a form of money. So if you were to peg it against the money supply that we have seen, for example, this chart that I showed you in terms of US money supply and gold. So this is just M2 money supply. If you see here, it's not M3 because there is a lot of money being created by central bank, then lent out by commercial banks, which becomes more money in circulation because there is a leverage involved in when they create more money. And hence M3 will be a real measure as compared to M2, that orange line that you see on the chart. Uh, so current money supply and if you were to look at gold, they still match up, but this is just the US money supply. Add euro, yeah, add yen, etc. Of what is their non-dollar assets, if you add that as well, that will lead to a more robust measure of money supply, and that would be much, much higher than what this chart shows you. So I think if you were to peg against that as a form of money, then probably you may reach what is the money in circulation by many of these central banks. And were you to pair it with gold prices, rebase it to 1970s, because that is when gold became off the gold standard. That would be a good comparison. And this is a very long-term chart that shows you, even with just the US M2 money supply, it is very close to where the money supply growth has been. Uh, think of it, if you were to add other reserve assets like euro or yen, etc., Chinese renminbi, they have been also be printing a lot of money. So that is how you look at this. I think gold bull markets generally जो associated होते हैं, it's associated from an investment standpoint. So they say gold has two hands. One is the physical demand, like from Indian jewelry consumers, becomes a floor. और जब भी इन्वेस्टमेंट बाइंग आता है वो गोल्ड प्राइस ऊपर लेके जाता है. So that's the second hand that helps gold prices. So one hand acts as a floor and second takes us higher. So that is how gold markets function overall. And to find an intrinsic value, you should peg it to different reserve currencies, and take the non for dollar you take the entire thing, and for others non-dollar holdings overall, to see where the money supply growth has been and where the gold price has been, and you peg it to 1970s to find where both lines would converge. So just with M2 we are at par. With if you include other currencies, it will still be higher.
One last feedback, Chirag, if you can go on the first slide which you had, where you had given the different phases of, yes, just one,
This one?
yeah. So just one suggestion from of the partner that if you can consider or maybe
Mm.
compare uh, last 5 year period. So we have taken a decade,
Yeah.
2015 to present. Can we also provide some input on what has been the returns in last 5 years?
Sure, we can do that. But this we have compared from 2015 onwards, because 2015 is where gold bottomed. That was the bottom of the previous down cycle, and from where gold started moving up. So till from there till now, It's been about 300 months nearly, and gold has gone up by 3x in that time period. So this is each bull market from the lows where it started till the peak that it saw. What was the increase in gold price and what was the number of months it took to reach that gold price?
Okay. Uh, I think, Chirag, we have kind of covered all the questions which have come. Any kind of closing remarks from your end before we wrap it up?
No, I think gold is a important asset in one's portfolio. लोग बोलते हैं कि वॉरेन बफे कहता था कि मुझे गोल्ड समझ में नहीं आता है। वो गोल्ड एक जगह से डिग करते हैं, दूसरी जगह एक खड्डा करके डिग करते हैं, दूसरी जगह खड्डा करते हैं वहां पे स्टोर करने के लिए। बट ये वॉरेन बफे या एनी अदर इन्वेस्टर, ऑफ कोर्स वॉरेन बफे भी बाद में गोल्ड में इन्वेस्ट करने लगे, मगर उन्हें उन्हें इमर्जिंग मार्केट इकोनॉमीज में कभी दे हैव नॉट स्टेड हियर। तो यहाँ पे जो इन्फ्लेशन होता है, जो करेंसी डेप्रिसिएशन आता है साल भर साल में, आई थिंक यू नीड अ प्रोटेक्शन अगेंस्ट दैट, एंड गोल्ड हैज प्रूवन टू बी दैट प्रोटेक्शन फॉर इन्वेस्टर्स। तो आपके क्लाइंट्स के लिए आई थिंक यू शुड हैव ए प्लान टू हैव एन एडिक्वेट एलोकेशन टू गोल्ड। और अगर नहीं है, so I think we can talk with you all and guide you all through your gold allocation for your clients, and build that allocation in the most suitable way. So I think you should have an allocation. uh, rather हम कहते हैं कि गोल्ड में allocation कीजिए, और दूसरे दिन अगर आपने आज 15% गोल्ड में allocation किया, दूसरे दिन से ये यू प्रे दैट गोल्ड कोलैप्सेस एंड गोज डाउन बाय 50%। अगर गोल्ड अगर आपने 100 में से 15 रुपए गोल्ड में डाले हैं और वो 15 आधा हो जाता है 7.5 रुपए पे, तो जो बाकी के एसेट्स है 85%, 85 रुपीज, वो कहीं ज्यादा होंगे एज कम्पेयर टू द लॉस दैट यू हैव इन गोल्ड। सो आई थिंक गोल्ड को उस तरीके से देखिए, एक इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी जैसा है गोल्ड पोर्टफोलियोज के लिए। उस वजह से गोल्ड में एलोकेशन होना चाहिए। और दिस टाइम वी हैव मच रोबस्ट फंडामेंटल्स गोइंग फॉर गोल्ड, सो आई थिंक एन एलोकेशन होना चाहिए गोल्ड में, एंड आई होप यू कंसिडर द क्वांटम गोल्ड फंड्स फॉर दैट एलोकेशन। थैंक यू।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.